What has been surprising me in preparing this work about the ashes is that finally I wasn't expecting to talk that much about death. The ashes are intimately linked to death. And just in our vision, well, the ashes arrive while it is Lenten season, but it's a little bit like death, but we think more about the spring, that life appears. But in fact, it is from our point of view here in the material plane. But you will see that it's really much more linked to death than we think. And this makes that the ashes are really interesting, and it can give us also another vision of death, but this we will talk about it later. We will have days where we will be talking about death. It will be really interesting. And on the link between Easter and the death, and the spring and death, and Raphael and death. Because us, we always see things in the material point of view, but in reality it's a process of birth. To have a birth, you have to have a death to something. So we have two ways to do the ashes, and I will talk to you about the second one. The first one is to do it by tradition or by habit or by beliefs. That means that people tell you, you must do the ashes, so you do them. But the other way is to do them because you are studying, you're understanding, you feel like going forward and to understand what you are doing. So this is the way of the priests. And as you are all priests, Essene priests, it means that you are on a path of knowledge, of understanding, of consciousness, and you want to put consciousness in what you're doing. So it is this way I'm going to talk to you about this, because the first ones, anyway, they do what they're told, and it works a certain way. Well, if priests tell you, well, go and do the ashes because it's the right time, so you receive a link, a protection by them. But you are Essene priests, so you must do more, or you can, if you want, do more. If you do more, it means that you are going to prepare the ashes, because you are not going just to do it a passive way. You are going to prepare this moment. You put an intention and understanding on what you're doing, because you see, as Olivier has explained to us for years, you have the element, the spirit that animates things, the genius, so the memory, the tradition of something, the egregore, and then if here the element is the ritual of the ashes, and that you do it because you're told to do it, because it's like this, it's the tradition, you remain here at this level. And from this moment, everything that is spirit, genius, egregore, will to do something, energy that animates, understanding, it's not you that has all this, it's others that do it for you. Priests, vessels that animate all this. So as I was telling you, the second way is as a priest, you must enter also into the spirit, the genius, the egregore of the ashes, to be able to do a stronger and more conscious act. And from this moment, what is interesting that if you do it by tradition, there's an energy that goes down into the element that animates it, and so you're animated by a tradition. You see, like people who were going to the church, and they were doing it by tradition because all their childhood they were doing it, and every Sunday they were going to church, but most of them didn't really understand what they were doing. But if you enter the second step, which is one of the priests that wants to educate himself, to animate things from his own will, saying, I want to do the ashes and I know what it implies. What is interesting is that then there is energy that comes from the element is yourself, your own body, and that gets out of you. It's because you want to do something. Then you generate a spirit, you generate a genius, you put energy on it. So there is not only a strength that will go down because it's tradition that you receive, but you are going to put an energy that goes up towards the highest. So you see the link with death. When you die, you'd better generate an energy towards your future life. If you only say, I'm going to die, I'm going to disappear, it's only energy that goes down. If you know that life goes on, and that you have to be alive inside you, you let an energy go out of you that goes up. Do you follow me? So finally, the attitude, dynamic that you have as an Essene priest does only prepare you to be alive inside you. And so, when you are going to lose the element, that means the physical body, you will always have the spirit, the genius, the egregore, because you have been already trained to live with it. This is our interest to do this. It's all benefits for us. So, when you are told to put ashes on you, there's a magic that happens. Why? Because inside you there is a water. I could put this here, we could put earth, water, air, fire. There is a water inside you that is in the world of the spirits, that is in the world of your will, of what you do out of your life. It's a water, all this. And when you put, then if you see a lake, you have seen how the sky reflects on it. It means that the water inside you, there are many influences that reflect on your lake, from the clouds, from the sky, from the birds that pass. There are things inside you that reflects in your water, and this reflection comes from here, and it gets printed in the water. So in fact there is part of the influences inside you that come from the world above the water, that are not in the water, that are beyond. Okay? So after you are going to have to live with these influences, once they have been reflected in your water, you will have to live with them. They are part of the influences that are in your water. So when you put the ashes in reality on the water. When you put ashes, you cover the water. Imagine a lake that suddenly the sky reflects in it, and you throw ashes beyond as a dust, and then you will not have the reflection of the lake anymore. The lake will be like frozen, you don't have any reflection on it. So it means that there are influences that are influencing your water with the ashes that will not influence your water anymore, that these influences are stopped. Okay? So the system of reflection, you know, if something is covered by dust, at home, a mirror, you have to remove the dust. The dust will prevent the reflection, and that's important because there are many things that want to live with us. And it can be, well, sometimes that it stops reflecting in our water. We don't necessarily have interest to be filled with all these influences, because the physical body, the element here, is a generator of energy. Constantly, we could say that it emanates energy, a light. We could compare this to a light, because it means each of us here, our physical body emanates a particular light, because we're all different. So what the body of Jocelyne emanates is not the same as what Yvon, Anne or Diane body emanates. And in the subtle worlds, we do not attract the same things according to the light we emanate. As in the summer, when you light lights outside, you have many insects that come on it. So imagine this in a subtle world. We always attract butterflies from the night, insects, everything. And according to our light, we attract such or such thing. Okay? So the idea of the ashes is to stop during a certain time this emanation of energy, of light, this reflection, these reflections, to stop, to attract this force towards us and to get centered again, instead of being all the time stimulated by all this. So if we do well the ashes, it works. While we're carrying them, and even for a time after, we are much more in the neutrality, in simplicity, in a calm. So finally, we will take the ashes there, always in the same element. Here we have the ashes, that means the ashes you put on your body, they are in a pot. I give it to you, you have ashes in it. Don't forget, it's an element. And this element corresponds a spirit, a genius, and an egregore. Always. It cannot be different. So, what is the spirit that animates the ashes when you have ashes? What is it going to bring as an energy? You can always only think about that. We could say simply that the ashes, they carry the message, or their specialty is that you are dust and you go back to dust. The ashes say that. They cannot say something else, no? They are ashes. They carry a message. The water carries a message. The air carries a message. You follow me? So the ashes, the physical element of the ashes says to all the nature, to all the beings that approach it, you are dust, you go back to dust. That's what they say. So, if you know how to use them, you can talk to beings to tell them this. Okay? For example, when you say, I feel tensed, I feel tensed inside, I will work with the water, I will go with the water, I will watch the water flow, I will watch a river flowing, I listen to the water flow, it helps me letting go. I'm telling to myself I have to let go my crispation. The water will make it do to me because that's what it is. It carries this message. Okay, it will clean. It cannot do something else. That's what it is. Its element, the water, carries the spirit, the genius, and the egregore of this message. The ashes carry a message of separation. What is dust goes back to dust, and what is not dust goes out. Okay. So, the beings of the nature, when they see ashes, they know very well what it means. And Rudolf Steiner had given a technique not to have rabbits and animals that come to eat the crops. He says, you take the ashes of an animal and you put the ashes all around your property, and the animals will feel that they must not approach. So the spirits of the nature, when they see ashes, immediately it's like a message to separate, of division, of dust that goes back to dust. So there are beings, when they approach the ashes, they are gone back to the nothingness, because they are only dust. If you are dust with a physical body, okay, we have a physical body that is dust, but that inside there is something. If you approach the ashes, it is the body that takes the message, but you inside you remain alive, because the life inside you is not linked to dust. So, for example, when you burn sage, there are native rituals where you burn sage to purify a house. It's in fact the work of the ashes. You say to the energies, to the beings, to the intelligences, the forces that are in the house, watch. You see the plant that is burning. Are you alive? Or are you a dead energy? If it is a dead energy, it will not have the choice only to see the ashes of the sage, and to disappear, because the ashes say to it, you are dust. If it is an alive energy that is in your house, it will not be removed by the sage. The sage cannot remove an alive energy, it can only remove a dead energy, an energy that has become useless. Dead, what does it mean? That has become useless, that something's dead on you, that you don't need it anymore, you follow me? So if you purify your house with sage, you can be certain that what you want to do is to remove what is useless in your life. You don't want to tell to all the luminous entities you have called to disappear. You will not say, you, the angels, get away from my house with this sage. It will not work, it's not possible. The angels are alive, the sage will not chase what is alive, but it will say to what is dead, to what has become useless. It was useful for a while, but now it's useless. So go back to dust, nothingness, you go back. So, when you work with the ashes, it is to say that everything that has become useless, that it disappears, that it goes back to the nothingness. So in the cycle of the year, very, very important to understand, we must always study the round of archangels all the time. It must come back on this. Well, I will try to draw a nice circle. The round of the year, we will put Raphael, Michael, Uriel and Gabriel. Well, noon, midnight, rising, setting sun. So these are celebrations, these are the point. We could do the round of archangels like this. They are at the solstice or the equinox is a culminant point. So there is the transition that is active in the middle of the path, which are also known feasts. So the ashes are here. You know, as in the maps when we are lost in metro, it's written, you are here. No, but it's funny to know. I think for me it's important to remember always where we are in our year, where we are in our life. Where you are in a project. Are you here in the project? So, what is very interesting is that there are ashes here. And what is in Michael too? Ashes. There are ashes in Michael. We don't often do the link, but at the solstice and equinox, twice a year we are calling the fire and the ashes, but not the same way. But in reality it is linked. So there was a psalm of the archangel that I didn't take time to find back for today, but you will find it back. It talks about death and explains that when there are things that you haven't worked yet in this life, when you have things that you didn't transform yet, you will die. And he says it's like the trees. A tree that has grown during the summer, the growth of the year is transformed into a branch, and the coming year it will grow from this branch, and you, all that you didn't have worked in this life, in your following life, it is from this that you are going to grow. And so what you haven't worked in, you will have become a branch, so something more solid. So it will be harder to work on it because it will be structured inside. You will not see it easily, or it will become very hard to change it. So it's interesting because you always have to bring back the great phenomena at the scale of life, youth and the old time of the year. Each year you can transform your destiny because you have in direct the will, the whole will of your life. You can act powerfully on it. It's a great secret of the round of archangels. And so here in the 15th of August you have a process in the nature that is called August. You watch in the nature all the branches that were flexible and green. It begins to become harder, and it's a transition between Uriel and Michael, and the wood becomes to be more thick and more hard. That's why we want to be certain to burn what we do not want to live with in the following cycle. So here you prepare your death being alive, saying to yourself, I want to burn by the fire of Michael what with I do not want to live the next time. I don't want to start on this basis again. Okay? So there is a process, the same process of work with the ashes here. And I will talk to you about it. But before all this, I wanted to tell you that in the Genesis, it is said that God has created earth and heaven. And he said, there has been an evening and there has been a morning, the first day of the creation. That means the creation starts one evening. The day that God has done starts in the evening. That's why it's questioning the way we see death, because in reality when you approach death, you are at the dust of the day created by God. And we see things completely at the opposite. We think that you are at the beginning, but you are approaching a new day, because one day starts at night, and Jewish has kept this tradition. And even us, when does a day start? At midnight. At midnight, 1 minute, it's already the following day. It comes from the very ancient knowledge, from Egypt and all this. It means that finally the round of a year, we consider it starts in Mikael, because it is there that you are entering into the night. And what happens in Mikael, in the nature, it's there where the plants create seeds, they prepare the life. And the rooting happens in the fall. Many roots appear in the fall, and then they will appear in Raphael. But in Raphael, when they appear, everything is already played. Nothing fundamental happens. There is just a starting of everything that has been put in place before. The same way, when you are born, already, it's why we talk about astrology. You make your astrologic theme with the influence of your birth. When you're born in a physical body, everything is already played somewhere. How your destiny is already drawn according to your night. So where is the real life? But that's it. That's why it's going to be interesting when we're going to talk about death. It will be very interesting. So, with the ashes, in Mikael, you are making enter. It's like moments of communication. Solstice and equinoxes are moments of communications between the worlds. In Uriel, you cannot really communicate with life, and in Gabriel, you cannot really communicate with Uriel. They are two completely opposite worlds. But the rising and the sun and the sunset, the spring and fall are fusion moments. It's a passage from the one world to another, where there is a possibility to enter into a world or to enter into the other one. You can go from one to another. So the ashes are important at this moment. Why? To avoid the problems. So, in working this in Raphael and Mikael, what you are doing is that you are practicing the consciousness continuity, and this is going to be fundamental. Because if you enter consciously into the period of Mikael, in the fall, in the dark period where the darkness is stronger, well, if you enter in consciousness, what is the consciousness? It is light. If you enter in consciousness, you make light enter into the darkness. But the only light that can enter into the night, it's not an outside light, because you have to respect the word of the night, otherwise it's not the word of the night anymore. You would like to bring the sun in the fall. No, the sun cannot go in the fall. The only light that can go into the darkness is the consciousness. The consciousness is the magical thread of everything that you're living. You can be certain that with the consciousness you will not put any disorder. You respect things as they are, but you go through them and you transform them. And you go beyond them. Jesus has talked about the stealer that was coming in the night in the field to plant the bad seeds. The bad seeds at night, it's in Mikael that it starts. The stealer comes in Mikael. So there are ashes so that the stealer doesn't enter your life or your project. When you start thinking about a project, you are in Mikael. You must get your project be rooted, and you mustn't have any bad seeds. But often there are some in reality. So what do? When the seeds are going to sprout, we do the ashes. We want to be sure that what is mortal be caught by the ashes and go back to dust. And we want to say to the bad seeds, you are dust, you go back to dust. We use the ashes, you understand? Because we do not want the bad seeds that have been planted begin to appear here in Raphael, because after we are going to have to live with them. So we protect our passage of the spring. And the first thing that we do in spring is the ashes. It is really the first thing, because we only feel a little bit the spring. Since at the time of Jesus, Nazareans, Nazar was the black, the the center of the eye, the absolute black, and the Nazarians were not afraid of the black because they were studying the death. And when they were dressing in white, yes, it was a purity, but it was the protecting the death, because all their life they were carrying the veil of death. And in this, the white dress of these things is a coat of ashes that you put on you. You want to tell all the words of the water, full of reflections, of colors and all this. Yes, I know that you exist, but in fact all this is an illusion and there is something greater than this. And sadhu in India, like the yogis that recover with ashes, that are in meditation, and they do this all their life, they are recovering their bodies with ashes not to get caught by this whirl of the water. So, the ashes of Michael prepare 6 moons. 6 moons here. During 6 moons something happens here, from Michael to Raphael. And so the ashes of Michael that are prepared at this preparing yourself to this period. And the ashes of Raphael are preparing you to the period of the 6 moons. When you are told 6 moons, think always to the night side of things. The 6 moons we are doing us in our world have a reflection at night, which is before. And this is why normally the candidates to the 6 moons must have taken their decisions in Michael and get prepared during 6 months, because there is all the seeds, the roots inside. Otherwise you arrive like at the lowest moment in Raphael, oh, I want to do my 6 moons, but what has been planted in your earth the 6 months before, this period of rooting, you don't know, you didn't even have worked, you don't have purified your earth, you didn't take care. And what will happen to Raphael? Raphael arrives at the breath of spring, it awakens all the seeds to life, all of them, without distinction. Bad seeds, pine trees, any flowers, all the seeds that without distinction they awaken them to life. If you don't know which seeds you have put inside of you, you are going to be taken during your 6 moons with the whole of seeds that are growing. And you have seen in nature, you don't have some plants in July and you have them in August. And you do your 6 moons and suddenly you have a great problem that happens during your process and you don't understand, but because the seed was already there in your land, in your earth. It was waiting for this moment, it's her period. It will appear at this period, and you said, well, I don't understand. Yes, but when you are gardening, you know that. If you don't prepare your garden, you will have problems, and even if you didn't bring them, you will have them in July, or you will have them in August, and it's the same thing inside us. In life, there is law of echo, where all this law of boomerang, that things come back, there is a lot inside you. Things that you do inside you are going to resonate inside you. And there is this phenomenon of echo from one moment to the other. You watch them in all these directions. You have an echo between Gabriel and Uriel, between Uriel and Gabriel. Think of this all the time in the round of archangels, in the round of a year. Don't forget where you are at this moment and think, yes, 6 months ago, what was I doing in my projects? What did I put in place in my life that is going to come back? You have cycles of 6 and you have a cycle of 12. You have the cycle of the whole year. So let's say that I'm talking to you about the seeds. What are the little seeds that are passing there and that are entering the earth? I want to make it very real for you. So what you say, the words that you pronounce, the attitudes that you have, the feelings that come inside you, the situations that are happening in your life, the relationships you have with the others. How many times you say, oh, it's always the same thing with him, it's always the same thing with her. Why did I say this once again? All the time I behave the same way. These are seeds, and these are beings that want to live inside you. And how can they live and take a body? This way, through gestures that you say, projects that you have, words that you say, thoughts that you have, these are beings, that seeds that you're permanently nurturing, and you are the Garden of Eden, or of the fall. You are nurturing beings, yourself you are a garden, you nurture and you make things grow permanently. So, okay. So in the preparation of the ashes, we are working during 7 days, because 7 days you work on your 7 principal centers. Because when you think well about it, it's with what you're living. What do you have in your life? You have time, space, and then you have your thought, your word. These are things you can live with. So you'd better work on this. So during these 7 days, work on this. And finally, your only possibility is the expiation. Expiation means to offer to God what you have, and that the rest goes back to dust. Because if you want to solve your problems, it will never finish. Because your problems are alive beings that want to keep on living. And you in your head, you're saying to yourself, I'm going to solve my problems, I'm going to get rid of it. But here, you like to be solved, and then you will disappear. You don't want to disappear. That this problem doesn't want to disappear either. How can you solve your problems? The only way you have is to put back things into the divine and to say, may all that is dust go back to dust, and may all that is useful, alive and good for me today be with me only today, because with the time it changes. So we find back. You remember Raphael in the ancient traditions. It's Easter. Easter, where does it come from? From Abraham, that climbs, because God asks him a sacrifice, his son. His son is his work, his extension, what he has created, what is the most precious for him. And he says, okay, I give it to you. I accept to die. I accept to die and may the dust of my son go back to the dust, to offer it to you, to offer it to God. So he does the ashes, Abraham. And finally God tells him, well, it was to test your faithfulness. I do not ask you, your son, give me a sheep, from the tradition of the Jewish, or of Orthodox, to kill a sheep, to do sacrifices to the God at this period of Easter. It is a deviation. Instead of sacrificing yourself and to make die inside you what has to go back to dust, you sacrifice an animal, and this way you can keep on living. Us, these scenes, we teach the bracelet, the round archangels, the ashes, and it is the path that St. John has opened. He said, there's no more bigger love, no greater love than the one of giving your life to God. And you give your life to God, and you accept to let die in you, inside you, what has to die, and you offer the life. Abraham was not offering a death to God, he was offering the life of his son. So the ashes are to say, I offer life. But to offer life, you have to separate life and death. And what is dead? I want to offer life. So what is dead? May what is dead remain. You separate with the ashes what is dust, to be able in Raphael to offer the life toward the archangel. So you're not at the celebration of Raphael like a whale in a river. Oh, I hope I will be clean because I've accumulated for three months. It will be helpful for me, this celebration. But you prepare it responsible and intelligent way. You do yourself this work of getting rid of what has become dead and useless, and to present to the archangel the life. If you know how to do this, and you train yourself from when you're alive, you're going to be successful. At the final moment where you will really have to get rid of your physical body. And what do we call this? The consciousness continuity, the resurrection, the real life. And this is why we say Jesus is not dead. It is a path that he has shown, and that is open, not to die, because the consciousness is continuing. But let's say that consciousness is a little seed here. If you want your seed to pass the door of Raphael so that it goes on living. It has to be right. Just, you don't want to be a seed that gives you a problem, so you don't want to enter into the new year that starts in Raphael with all your bad seeds, and that will engender only problems, and it will be problems, and then you will complain after. So man cannot do anything else than emanate energy, I told you. So the sacrifice to God allows you to make a separation, and either life is going to sacrifice you and give you to eat to all your events of your life, either yourself you prepare your own sacrifice. That is called the expiation. Expiation is the conscient and deliberate and intelligent sacrifice, understanding that an educated human or a sin can do. He makes an expiation. That means that he has understood that there are things inside him that are dead. And so it is a conscious sacrifice. It's the basis of the true sacrifice, or anyway you will be sacrificed by life to make a whole world turn. So will finally be sacrificed and be used as a nurturing. You will not be the life that is offered to God, but it will be the dead body that is nurturing the death, and that is given to the Holocaust. Study all these ancient things, it's very interesting. So the expiation is to willingly pausing an altar in your life, and what you do when you do this, the ashes yourself, they are the mountain of God, the altar. And yourself, you present yourself in front of life, and you get covered with ashes, and you say, I offer myself in sacrifice, so that the life be offered and that the dust goes back to dust. I am ready, I do it myself. I'm not waiting for life to do it to me. So when you do this, the consciousness will go through the door of the death, even the little death of the equinox of the spring, the death of the cycle. It's new year that it's starting, and you will have what? A continuity of consciousness that we have represented as a snake that is biting its tail. For example, the snake that bites its tail is a continuity of consciousness. In Egypt, we were representing the serpent, the negative serpent, Apophis. We were always representing it as something that was separating into pieces, and we were saying that when you live and when you have pieces from one day to the other, that you're not in coherence, your life has been stolen by a serpent of fragmentation. That's what we were having fear of. So when you do the work of the round of archangels, you have a continuity. So the ashes at the level of the water allow you to leave the spirits in the water, to be able to arrive in the air. You let them in the water here in the Gabriel to be able to get into the air prepared. So it is linked to the worship of the light when you have the triangle of the invocations. You have the two guardians that are linked to the air, and the triangle is linked to the water. But at the little scale I'm talking to you about is the benevolence would be the earth, the triangle of invocations is the whole world of water inside, and when you arrive in the great laws and the caducée of Hermes and the two guardians, you arrive in the air. So you let in the triangle of the invocations, because imagine, you arrive in the triangle of the invocations. We will imagine you're naked, so there's nobody, and you have been recovered with ashes, and you enter into the triangle of invocations. All the beings that are in the triangle of invocations, what do they say? This being is naked. That means he knows that his body is nothing, and that finally he doesn't possess anything. He knows it. He doesn't believe he has a house, a car, and all this. He knows it. So they cannot really approach you, catch you. They cannot illusionate you. Yes, but your house, yes, but your car, yes, but your... No, they cannot, because yourself, you have been naked. And for more, your body, you have covered it with ashes, and you say, I know that my body is dust, but me, inside, I'm alive. And it is this life that I make enter into the worship, so they will let you go, for sure. And you know the link with the passage of death. you will have no problem. They don't have any means, because you don't have any illusion. You go forward and you say, I know that my body is an illusion, I use it in consciousness, but me inside, I am alive. And I am alive. So these influences cannot say, no, but you're nothing, you're not this or that. Yourself, you have done the work before. So you have two ways, as I told you in the beginning, you have two ways. Either you say, oh, when I will die, God will come and He will do the selection inside me, He will judge, and what He finds, well, He will take it, and the rest, He will put it into the garbage. You can do this. Or you say, well, I am a great person, I will do my selection before, I will do my preparation before. I will not be considered as a baby that has to be managed. I will be a responsible adult. I will not be taken in charge. And then we will go back into the tunnel of the light that I will talk to you about when we will talk about death. So either you tell to yourself, Raphael will do the selection for me and I will live only the things that are corresponding to me, or you say, myself, I do my work, I put the ashes myself, and let everything be dust, go back to dust. I wanted to say to you so that it has a link. Once you have done these ashes, it has a link with the 12 pearls, the 12 principles, angels of Gabriel. Because if you die, you have to get born automatically. So in the spring we are talking about the rebirth of Raphael that gives a body to all the plants. He will give another body, all the seeds, he will give them a body. What gives a body? The 12 influences of Gabriel. It is the magical placenta of all being. You give it a body. So if you go into the ashes to die, you must automatically reborn. So ideally, once you have put the ashes on you, you put yourself into a circle with the 12 flames, with 12 seals of the 12 angels of Gabriel, which are placenta, and ideally, you present yourself in front of these 12, because the 12 are also the 12 doors of the year of what you're going to live, and you tell them, I know that there are things in me that are dust and that will not live. And this way, 12 trials you could have in the year, the 12 temptations, the 12 problems, you neutralize them completely this way. It's a powerful magic to be protected during the year. And you make sure that all the doors presenting in front of you, you will pass them. Once we are inside the circle with the 12 seals of the 12 angels of Gabriel, that we have been turning ourselves towards, each one accomplishing the correspondent arcana. It is important to recenter yourself, to place yourself at the center of the circle, which is our deep, real, deep identity, our divinity, and there we can pronounce the name of the Mother. And so, all that is coming from the false identifications, the false names that we have been given or that we give to ourselves, we can neutralize them a certain way. Recovered by ashes, pronouncing the name of the Mother, that means that we know who we are and we draw ourselves our path. So it is to do at the end. You could do the etheric dance once you have put the ashes also, or do the 12 arcanas corresponding to the 12 virtues of Gabriel. And doing this, you clean the doors, and it is linked to the twigs. When Jesus arrives in Jerusalem, I think, with the twigs, there is a whole history, and these are ancient traditions. We were doing magical doors, and we were going through them like we do in Beltane. In Beltane, we have the 2 branches with a fire, and we make a door, and we pass in the middle, and when you put yourself in these 12, with the ashes, you're passing through 12 doors, and you're being welcomed with twigs all year long. And with people saying, Hosanna, because you don't carry the death, you don't bring a bad seed, you are bringing only the life, and you let the bad seeds behind you. So you understand, well, I finish on that. That the more you are going to do this here with your physical body, the more you are going to do it, how can I explain? The more it's going to live inside you as an evidence the more it's going to live also in your night side. There is no separation between your nights today, your nights and the above world. Our nights are our beyond world. We must not imagine that the beyond world is going to be somewhere else. So the more you are going to do something, the more you're living it inside of you, the more you're going to live with it, with the body or without the body, because at night you live without the body. It's only in the morning that you get it back. But at night you live without your body, so the more you live with something now, the more you are going to prepare yourself a body for the world beyond. I'm preparing my following subject, but that's what I wanted to tell you today for the work of the ashes. So you know the implication it has and how passionate it is. And it corresponds really to the realm of archangels now, and it has to become obvious in our field of life, in our tradition, that we do this, that we live with it every year, that it becomes a dance, really. And when we will see each other, one another, we will see our children, our teenagers, our adults, our elders, we will see a great round of archangels that will all incarnate through the ages of our lives. And we will do all the things that corresponds to our ages, and we will be all together, because some are in the ashes in the moment in their life, some are here, some are here, some are here, and we will make a realm of archangels that is human, carried and incarnated by our bodies, that are elements. The Mardi Gras is a popular tradition. This just before the ashes, the Wednesday, it was the Tuesday where we were eating a lot because we were preparing a period of fast after. So with the Mardi Gras, the Tuesday of feast, you want to encroach inside of you all your frustrations and your fears, and everything was changed, and you were eating and drinking, and all these traditions were like Halloween, where Halloween is there in a mirror. We want to catch the spirits and things that look like them, chaotic things, to catch them, and then normally in the pumpkin you catch it because you draw something in it, and then the pumpkin it destroys. So instead of something that is turning around you all the winter, it has entered the pumpkin and you're protected this way. And Carnival is the same thing, masks and all this. And in several countries you were changing the things. The rich ones were becoming servants of everybody during one day, and the servants were knocking on them and all this. But these are laws of social balance. As when you make the body of an animal flow, you were calming a demon, and this way we were calming the social tensions.